Hi, everybody. Thank you so much. I want to thank our studio audience for being here. I'm psychic medium Angelina Diana, and welcome to the first of which I hope will be many other programs called A New Day. And a new day to me means a new beginning and a fresh new start. And I hope when you tune in every time this program is on, you feel that way when the program is over. So what we're going to talk about first, and I hope again with many other shows, is not only how you can see the world in a different way. You know how you live life every day, you're shaking someone's hand and they're smiling, but you get this gut feeling that they want to do something else that isn't so positive, or you walk into work after feeling really good, and then all of a sudden you don't feel so good. Well, that has a lot to do with energy, and I believe we're all equipped to tune into our own energy, and if we enhance that with a spiritual belief and a belief that there's something bigger than us, I believe our life can be amped up. It can go the way that we need it to go, and when we have lows in our life where there's a loss or we're not feeling quite empowered, if we tune into that spiritual side of ourselves, we can live a more empowered, loving, and fulfilling life. So that's what I'm hoping that we'll offer you in the time that we spend together. I'm so grateful that we have an audience here. I'll hopefully be pulling someone up to do a reading if Spirit so moves us. But as we do begin this program, I want to talk a little bit about how I got my start, because you might find something in common with it. You may not be a psychic medium, but we have a life that has ups and downs, and those ups and downs can actually bring gifts into our lives so that we see our path more clearly if we amp up that spiritual side of ourselves. So I'm going to talk a little bit about what I do, and I'm hopeful that it will make you see your own natural psychic ability, your own mediumistic ability. We'll talk about what those two things are. And so that when you go through your life, you'll feel more empowered. So as a psychic medium, I've been doing this work since 2001. Before that, I was a newscaster in radio, and I did a little acting and a little bit of singing, and it still is a passion of mine. But when this work came into my life, I was a newscaster in radio, and all of a sudden, guess what? I had headphones on, and I started hearing voices in my head. Yes, that's true. Voices in my head, and I thought it was something technical with the radio station I was working for. And what had happened was that the technical person of the radio station came in and said, Angelina, you're either going nuts or you're psychic or something. And I kind of went, what? Because there's nothing that could possibly be going through your headphones right now. And I really thought about it, and I said to myself, well, geez, at that point I'd been in radio for about 8 years, and I'm like, well, what does this mean? Why is it that all of a sudden I'm in this enclosed environment? When you do news, I don't know if you could picture a radio station, but usually the news girl, that's what it was like in the late 90s, the news girl was kind of away from the morning show, and I was in this little booth. So what I learned at that moment was when you're in an enclosed space, when you're alone, when there's nothing physical coming around you, something inside you gets stirred up and you start hearing things that aren't connected to the physical world. Now, being a newscaster back in the mid-90s, we had to be credible, and the last thing I wanted to do was go on the air and go, guess what? I think I'm hearing voices from the other side as I do my newscast. That wouldn't have been so cool. Maybe today it would be, but back then you had to be very credible. So just as the universe would have it, the very next week, the morning guy came to me and said, Angelina, you know, I think I want to book psychics and mediums for the show. And I went, what a coincidence. So I ended up doing that, and long story short, a lot of the psychics and mediums started to talk about that very thing, that when you find yourself alone, when you're daydreaming, when you're isolated and separated from the physical world, you have the ability to tune into the non-physical world. And this set me off in my journey in 1998 on a personal level to kind of study for myself, what is a psychic, what is a medium, why is it that when I am alone and I'm feeling sad, I feel like my loved ones still feel like they're with me. What does that mean? And what I discovered on a personal level was that when we do take moments to tap into that higher self of who we are, when we tap into something that's separated from the physical world, call it belief in God, angels, Buddha, a spiritual self, a higher self, we can tap into the non-physical world. And what I want you to think about are all those non-physical things around you that are around us that we take for granted. You know, usually when I'm in a seminar, or if I was to even ask the audience here, you know, what are things that you know are out there that you can't see that exist? Any ideas? Very quiet audience. No, but think about it. There are non-physical things connected to us. Like, for example, if we think about radio waves, they're in the airwaves right now, but until we have a receptor like a radio station, we can't hear what song is playing, right? Or how about if I blew a dog whistle right now, would you hear it? You wouldn't hear it. Or even if we look at like microscopic things, we can't see bacteria or anything like that without a microscope. So there are things around us that exist that we need a microscope, or we need to have the ear of a dog to hear a dog whistle, or we need a radio to pick up on the invisible energy that's around us. And being at a radio station, I kind of understood that. I was like, okay, so that makes sense to me. And as I started to block out the physical world and tune into the non-physical, well, how do you do that? Meditation, daydreaming. I started to daydream. Well, I was always a daydreamer. But I started to daydream with intention. So if you start daydreaming with intention, you'll start picking up on things that don't have anything to do with the physical world at the moment. So like, for example, if you were to wake up tomorrow morning, what's the first thing we do? We take our iPhones or our phones and we shut off the alarm. We scamper into the kitchen, we make a cup of coffee, and we're off to work, or we're off with our physical lives. But what I learned when I started to study this personally, that is, if you shift that energy, shift it, start saying to yourself, I am not going to be a victim of what the physical world is telling me to do at this moment. Yes, I have responsibilities. Yes, there are things I have to take care of. But what I decided to do was I decided to create an intention every day of, okay, at that point in the early 90s or late 90s, early 2000s, my grandmother was the big loss. Since then, my mother has crossed over. But my grandmother was the big loss for me at that point. And I said, okay, if you're still with me right now, I want to know how you're doing, and I want you to tell me something about my day. And I started to feel, hear, and see things. And I was like, okay, I took time to do that. I think I'll just write it down. So I started to write down things. And then I started to see within the next week or so, things coming back at me that were kind of familiar. I'm going, why is that familiar? And then I'd look into my journal or what I wrote. I'm like, oh my gosh, I saw that, or I felt that, or I heard that from within. So there started to be a, what people would call coincidence, but what I'd like to call spiritual connection to the other side speaking to me or making me hear them or feel them. So in that beginning journey from 1998 to 2001, it was really about my own personal journey. Then what happened was some of the psychics and mediums for the show that I was doing, the radio show that I was doing, started to say, you know what, we think you're very sensitive. We think you should start taking classes. They were doing psychic readings on me. And long story short, I took classes. And as a newscaster, I was kind of curious, is this for real? So then I started to do readings on other people just for fun, just for curiosity. I thought it was just for fun, but it was really my spirit guiding me. And then I found out that people wanted more readings from me. And I'm like, well, I want to be the next Barbara Walters. Why would I want to do that? And what I found so striking was the readings were helping. So from my viewpoint, I went from wanting to be Barbara Walters to all of a sudden driving to Long Island for 3 hours to do psychic fairs. And you look at that journey. If someone had told me in 1998, in 3 or 4 years, you'd be driving 3 hours to Long Island, I would have told them they were crazy. So sometimes we have to say to ourselves, when we're in situations that we don't feel comfortable in, or we don't understand our path, we have to trust the things that we're passionately connected to. And I was passionately connected to figuring out if my grandmother was still with me, figuring out why I had this passion to want to help people. So in 2001, I made the decision to try this professionally. And I haven't looked back since. I've been a full-time psychic medium since. And when I opened up this conversation, I said to you, you'll find something in common with this. Well, what I feel you'll find in common is when you have moments in your life where you doubt yourself. You have moments where you're saying, I don't know which way I need to go here. What we tend to do is we look at the physical world for validation, right? We say, gee, everyone thinks I should take that left, so I'm going to take that left, right? We go, yes, okay, and we take that left. But what if I told you you had an opportunity to tune into a higher self, a spiritual self? We're all spirit. Don't you think we are? I mean, on some level, if you think about it, how many times, I remember when I was, gosh, this was probably, I want to say about 8 or 9 years ago. I used to have this thing up on the wall. It was square. It had numbers in it, and you can actually dial someone and call them. Do you remember those? They were called rotary phones. You know, I mean, we used to have them. I don't know if you have them anymore. I don't have them anymore. But I used to be able to dial up my sister, and I'd pick up the phone, and she was already there. Oh, what is that? That's called telepathy. And we're still in our physical bodies. So to me, this idea of I can still be in my physical body, but still psychically or intuitively know that my sister's going to call because I pick up that phone, that's your spirit. That's your ability to tune into something other than the physical world. So I want you to think about how many times you've said to yourself, gee, that's a strange coincidence. And what you might be finding is that you're actually being psychic and you don't know it. And I earlier spoke about the idea of seeing, hearing, and feeling from the other side. Well, you can feel your loved ones. You can hear them. You could see them from within. And I hope to talk more about this on this program, on a later program. I'll talk about that. But if you think about seeing, hearing, and feeling, how many out you and in the audience have had a gut feeling before? Right? Oh, you're all raising your hands. How many of you have had a deja vu before? Of course, I'm hearing. How many of you heard I'm going to take a left instead of a right? Something's, yeah, you're all raising your hand. Well, some of you aren't, but you can. You can hear where you're going to go. You can feel where you're going to go. You're going to see what you're going to go. But what prevents us from trusting that is actually what the physical world tells us. I don't want to take that left. I'd rather take that right. So what I'm saying to you in a nutshell is this show is going to be about your abilities naturally to be psychic, which means I can see my future or sense it. And if you're missing someone from the other side, the show is going to be about how do I tap into my natural ability, or what I call being a personal spirit communicator. How can I contact my own loved ones because I'm missing them? I do it professionally, but I do believe that my journey in the last 14 years, because I went from being that person grieving to being a newscaster, well, now I want to be a newscaster the other side. And I'm hopeful that I can bring what they've taught me to you so that you yourself, if you're missing someone, if you're wondering, am I psychic or am I a medium, or how can I naturally move through my own abilities without being legalistic about it or over religious about it, but being spiritual about it. My hope is that I can bring more enlightenment to you so that your journey here, we can be together on it, and I can help you be more psychic or intuitive. And if you're missing someone, you can have some tools so that you can feel better connected to them. So that's what I'm hoping. And will you stay tuned and we can work on that together in the next few weeks? I hope so. So what we're going to do now is we're going to take a short break, but before I do, I want to tell you about a great organization. I do believe part of the work that I do is helping you, but I do believe when we're a blessing to other people, if we're grieving, we're in a tough spot, and we're a blessing to other people, it can help us over that hump of grief, or help us when we're having a bad day. If we can't help ourselves and we help someone else, it gives us that extra oomph to feel good about our lives. And I want to tell you about this organization called Loaves and Fishes. Last year, Loaves and Fishes served over 65,000 meals and provided over 37,000 snacks for children in 5 local schools. They provide nutritious meals, unused clothing, fresh vegetables, personal items, and guidance. If you would like to help them out, they're in need of donations and volunteers to help run the soup kitchen. if you're in need of their help, you can locate them too. They're located at 28 Prospect Street, P.O. Box 544 in Enfield, Connecticut. You can give them a call at 860-741-0226, or they're also on the internet at www.enfieldloavesandfishes.com. And remember, if you are having a tough time in your life, it's really wonderful when you can be a blessing to others. So I hope that you can give Loaves and Fishes some support. So we'll be back right after this message.
Every day across America, excess food is gathered by a network of good people at local food banks, giving hope to millions of children who struggle with hunger. They've earned their wings, and you can too. Together, we can solve child hunger. Support Feeding America and your local food bank at feedingamerica.org.
You realize that 49 million Americans struggle with hunger? That's 1 out of every 6 Americans.
These people are around us every day. They're our friends, they're our coworkers, their kids go to school with our kids.
Sometimes we're not even aware that they're struggling. This problem is closer than you think. But so is the solution.
Play a role in ending hunger. Visit feedingamerica.org/hunger and find your local food bank.
Welcome back to the program. This is a new day with psychic medium Angelina Diana. And before the program started, I had asked the audience coordinator to ask the audience before they came in here to ask a question. And I was really intrigued with your question, Terry. You had asked, when did I realize that I had this gift? And the first thing I want to say to you, Terry, is I believe everyone has abilities. I don't believe what I do is a gift. I believe it's an ability. And I really feel that if we look at psychic mediums more on the level of we've just chosen this path because we've been given the gift of the passion to help people through it. But I believe you too, and everyone else in this audience has the ability to connect psychically. And when I read that, my inside said, I've got to read you because there's so many things that I feel connected to you. One of them is I feel that you're very intuitive, and you know this, right? And
Yes,
we haven't spoken at all.
No.
So I feel part of the job of a psychic versus a medium. A psychic is someone who reads someone's future, is to validate you. And when I go right to your energy, when I read that, I didn't want to know who asked the question. I only know the name of the person. I feel you to be a very healing, sensitive, intuitive person, and your brain knows this. You walk around feeling very empathic, is that correct?
Yes.
So I feel like that's a natural thing we all have, but you feel to me very tuned into it. And I feel on a psychic nature, there's a lot of writing that's involved with you. So there's something in the back of your mind about either writing the book or writing down the words that you feel so strongly connected to when it comes to your intuitive nature. Is that correct?
It is.
Okay,
yes.
so I feel like I just had to say, like I saw that and I went, I got to tell you that. So not even knowing you, I want to validate that for you. So I hope it empowers you to do that, because I really do feel like it's going to help a lot of people. There was a part in your life that you either wanted to be in nursing or go into the medical care field, or there's a medical background connection to you. Is that correct?
No,
Be honest.
Not really.
Okay,
No.
so that's okay. Psychically, that's okay. Psychically, I do feel that that's an indication to me that you will be helping some people through this work. And I want you to look for the family member connected to you that does have like a medical background, or they're wanting to help people in a physical sense to get the education connected to that. Does that make sense to you?
Yes.
Okay, so that is definitely connected to you. And I feel like you're going to be able to assist and help them in an empathic way, so that they can be very strong-minded about their path. So this person connected to you, I'm sensing, feels wobbly. They don't feel too certain about it. Is that correct?
Yeah.
They feel a little off by it. I do feel your empathic nature is going to help them. With that, a male figure steps forward. There's a father figure passed for you?
Yeah.
He's coming through like dad. I need to honor him. He's bringing through what feels like a dog. So there's a dog connection to you that's passed on the
Yeah.
other side? Okay, so he's making me feel as a father figure, he's coming through and what I'm feeling him. So I should be very clear. I see, hear, and feel. So he wasn't much of a talker. I mean, there's something more of his feelings being very, very strong. I mean, he might have, I'm sure he's spoken his life. He has
Yeah.
a funny sense of humor all of a sudden. He's kind of making a joke with me, like, I spoke in my life. I just heard that. But I'm feeling very strongly his empathic nature, his ability really to move people with feeling. So he was sensitive for a male, is that
Yeah,
correct?
he was.
Okay, so I'm feeling his sensitivity. So much so that I do feel like he needs to bring through your dog. Okay, so I feel this dog coming through. And the dog to me looks medium size. It also has there's a second dog with it that's a little like lap dog. It's like a boop, 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 boop kind of dog. That's what I'm hearing connected to it. So the medium-sized dog to me feels like it was about 13 years old when it passed. It was
Yeah,
on the
it was.
older side. You understand that? The younger dog to me feels like when it was here, it sat on this gentleman's lap or it was connected to this man. So I would see if you could check to see where the dog connection is for him. Because I feel like his sensitivities as a father figure are saying, don't worry, your dog's here, he's hanging out with me. The other thing I want to say to you is this male to me makes me feel like he either passed unexpectedly or there was something connected to his heart and chest before he passed, because he makes me feel some palpitations there, and I feel like he kept them in. He didn't tell people about it. So was he being a little quiet about his medical care when he was here, not talking to people about it?
Everybody kind of knew what was going on. Yeah, it was just a long.
It's interesting to me. Okay,
process.
so here's where we're not seeing eye to eye, and I have to honor his evidence in this. What he makes me feel, it's a long process for him. He makes me feel like 6 months prior to that knowledge of everyone, because he's telling me this. He's a detailed guy, very detailed. No. She's got to understand my point of view. That's what I'm hearing. So that validates his detail in life.
Okay.
You understand this?
Yeah.
Okay. But he's telling me 6 months before he wasn't talking to people about his medical stuff. And he's even claiming people knew about the health thing, but even when he passed, it was still a surprise. So there has to be something a little off in the timing of when he passed compared to when people thought or expected him to pass. And he's even validating that even more. So I hope this makes sense. He's telling me 3 nights before his passing, 1, 2, 3, that's what he's showing me. There was something about a vigil or being with him, but the up and down nature, people had expected him because of his illness. He was stronger. I was stronger. That's what I'm hearing. And then he passed unexpectedly. That's what he's showing me. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah.
Okay,
it
so
does.
I need to honor, I know you seem unsure, but I need to honor his point of view on that, because what he wants to validate is the vigil. They kept vigil. They expected me to get better, and I was better, but then I passed. So that's what he's showing me. I'm also feeling what feels like a grandmother figure coming through on mom's side. Do you understand that? Okay, there's also 2 females with her. One's younger, so there's a mother figure passed for you?
My grandmother.
Okay, what's interesting, she's got then 2 younger sisters with her or 2 younger females with her. So I don't know if there's a daughter passed for her or she's talking about the 2 sisters passed for her. She's got 2 younger females than her with her. I don't know their age.
Yeah.
They're not coming through to me, the grandmother is. So I need to
Okay.
honor that. Now the grandmother to me has a similar energy to you. Her energy comes through very empathic, very loving, very healing. So I need to honor that. So there's a similarity there. Do you
Right.
understand that? Now she makes me feel that she wants to. I'm hearing her, so she's a good talker.
Yeah.
Yeah, talk. And what's interesting about her talking to me is she's like saying she wants to talk to me too. She wants to talk to me too. So this shows me that the 2 of you would have good conversations together. So this is a grandmother that you knew well.
Yep.
Okay, because sometimes grandmothers that you never knew come through. So I need to honor that. Now I have to honor a very common name. I'm hearing Mary, Maria, M-A-R, connected in that family. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah.
Okay, and I also have to honor the family of 5, 3 children and a set of parents. The family of 3 kids. Does that make sense to you too as well?
Yeah.
Okay, so I need to honor that. And she wants to include them in with you. So I feel like this is like a sibling's family or someone connected to you. Do you understand that? Okay,
Yeah.
so it's her way of saying include them all. Now, I have to tell you, as sensitive as your grandmother is, she's more directive and bossy. Is that how you remember her being?
Yeah.
Okay, because you
Oh,
don't
yeah.
have that. You don't have that kind of energy to me. You
Right.
have a very acquiescent, very open, a very
going.
healing energy on a psychic level. She's more like, no, you tell her this and you tell her that. That was her personality
Right.
here, so you get that. So I do feel grandmother coming through. I want to honor the reason why she's coming through. She makes me feel very strongly that you've become very strong yourself in the last year. There's something about the last year forging something for you. That's what she's telling me. And she makes me feel like you're going to bring your family together because your family feels apart right now. Does that make sense to you? Okay.
Kind
So
of, yeah.
there's something about your according to her, something about your
Okay.
empathic energy that's going to bring your family closer together. I feel like that's her message. The evidence that this is your grandmother is definitely her personality. The personality drawn. The last thing I want to say to you is you tend to be very sentimental and you hold on to some little tchotchkes from your grandmother. She's using that term. That's not a term I use. So she says, oh, she still has my little tchotchkes and she's holding on to them. And she said, you recently thought about, now Spirit knows your thoughts and they know what you're thinking, okay? There's something specific about adding something to your keychain recently or wanting to be more spiritual and add something to your keychain that you hold on to that it reminds you of your spirituality. I'm hearing, for some reason, she's making me hear what sounds like keys jingling. I don't know what she's jingling. But she's adding like this spiritual thing to it going, she has it, it's mine. So is there something specific about grandmother's religion or faith that you carry with you and it has a little metal jiggling to it? I don't know what this is.
Boy, I'm not sure.
I respect
we were just
that.
talking about her forks and knives and spoons last night.
Oh, that's a
But
little metal
those
and jiggling.
jingly, yeah.
I don't think you'd add them to a keychain.
Right, I don't think
so.
so,
This
but-
would show you how, as a medium, I'm mishearing. But she says she's kind of thinking. Now, what would be interesting is if somebody thought about literally carrying one of her forks or spoons around just for energy. I know that sounds odd,
Right.
but it might happen.
It might
but
happen.
Spirit knows what you're thinking, and they know what you're feeling. And I do feel very strongly she was in on that conversation. I hope this has helped you in the
Oh my
short
God.
time that
Yes,
we're
thank
together.
you so
I
much.
thank you so much for your question, and I
That's
thank you
great.
sincerely for allowing me and honoring me to meet your family.
Oh my God.
And please do that writing. I really do feel your empathic nature is going to help a lot of people.
My new
Thank you. Let's give her a hand. I want to take this time to close and thank you so much for joining me on a new day with psychic medium Angelina Diana. I hope there'll be many more programs like this. If you're interested in finding out more information about me, you can go to www.angelinadiana.com. Please make every day the best that you can. Remember, when you're a blessing to others, it brings blessings back to you. Thank you for watching.